Specialized Transportation Grant, 85.21. The Specialized Transportation Assistance Grant application for 2025 is scheduled for a public hearing by the Washington County Public Works Committee on Thursday, December 19th, 2024 at 3 p.m. in room 1019 at the Washington County Herbert J. Tenney's Government Center, West Bend, Wisconsin, 53095, for the purpose of receiving comment for Washington County's proposed application for approximately $398,321 of funding authorized under Section 85.21 of the Wisconsin statutes to implement its elderly and disabled transportation program, shared ride taxi service, interfaith caregivers, 4 ADA bariatric vans. At the hearing, Washington County Public Works Committee will afford an opportunity for interested persons or agencies to be heard with respect to the social, economic, and environmental aspects of the project. Interested persons may submit orally or in writing evidence and recommendations with respect to said project.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak at this time? Hi.
My name.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask your name.
Okay. My name is Melanie Gonring. I'm the new executive director at Interfaith Caregivers. I took over for Janine Brudvig back in September. So thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about our organization and program today and how the 8521 grant makes such a difference for our mission. So we are a nonprofit in Washington County whose mission is to connect seniors to caring volunteers with a vision that those in our community 60 and greater can have greater access to the resources needed to remain independent in their homes. We offer many services thanks to our dedicated volunteers, the biggest of which is our senior transportation program, which provides rides to medical appointments, including dialysis, cancer treatment, physical therapy, pharmacy trips, socialization. We are unique in that we cross county lines to get people to their appointments. We will go within a 50-mile radius of Washington County. That means our our volunteers are making frequent trips to out-of-county locations like Menominee Falls and Grafton, and farther away to the VA, Freighter's main campus in Milwaukee, Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, Beaver Dam, anywhere within 50 miles. Even on days like today, I'd like to share some stats with you that really emphasize the scope of the services that we offer. We currently have about 145 active volunteer drivers. Most of those individuals provide services in their personal vehicles, and about 35 of those drivers use one of the vans in our fleet, which are all wheelchair accessible. We have 13 vans in our fleet. One is stationed down in Germantown, one in Hartford. Come Monday, we'll have one in Jackson, and the remainder are here near our office in West Bend. We provide upwards of 200 trips every week. From December 1st of 2023 through today, we were just shy of 11,000 rides, and over 2,200 of those rides went out of county, which is really a special thing about our program. Our volunteers in that year drove more than 238,000 miles and provided over 12,300 volunteer hours to make that happen. It costs in the neighborhood of around $250 to $300 to arrange out-of-county transportation with a private service. So we've estimated that we've saved our clients nearly $700,000 through the services that we provided in the last year. 2025 is our organization's 20th anniversary, and the need for rides and the need for that transportation, especially that out-of-county transportation, continues to grow. The $9,000 we receive as part of the 8521 grant is instrumental in helping us continue this much-needed service for those 60 plus here living in Washington County. And we thank you for all the support you've provided and hope it can continue. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? And last call, is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll close this public hearing, and we'll need a motion and a second to bring this to the table. Anybody?
I'll make a motion open.
I'll second.
Making a motion from Supervisor McCulick, second by Supervisor Garath. Anybody have any discussions on this topic? Scott, did you want to speak on it at all, or no? Kind of is what it is, right?
Just wanted to answer any questions that you may have. The details of where the fund is going is within the report. But if you have any questions, certainly myself or Charlie, the transit manager, will be able to provide any answers for you.
Okay. So nobody has any questions yet? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item B, IT quarterly report.
All right, good evening. It seems like I was here not too long ago. These
I
go by
even
fast.
recognize you yet, Joe.
Oh, because the beard's gone?
Sure, that's it.
We'll leave it to that one. All right, a lot's accomplished in the last 3 months since I've been here. We're looking at the first thing on the agenda here is the kind of the EOS initiatives. The first one here, the redesign access database applications. I can say we have 2 permits left to do. One's our shoreland wetland permit, and then the county highway access and utility permit with Scott. We're getting very close there. I did move the date back to a more realistic date, but we're really, really close. The one other database that was currently on an old Microsoft Access database from many years ago. We have 1 database left to move, and then we're done with that project. So we're moving right along. I think that one we have scheduled to, before the end of January, and I think we're going to meet that target. So moving right along with that. We continue to make strides towards Office 365. More and more departments are asking about moving files to SharePoint so they can collaborate with other agencies and vendors and the state of Wisconsin. So we're making more strides towards that. Recently, the Human Services, HSD, brought on some provider documents that we share out using SharePoint now, which we were able to save the county money from previous service that we were paying for. So I'm proud to say we're keep moving forward with that. Let's see here. The one red item that I have on here in enhancements to IT infrastructure was replacing switches at the sheriff's office. We did run into an issue. As of late last week, we have a workaround for that issue now. With these new switches, it's just a different operation, and we figured that out on how to add them to the environment. So 7 more closets, and we're done with the sheriff's office. So I'm happy to say that's moving forward. It is behind, but I think we should be able to get it finished in Q1 of 2025.
7 more closets. I hate to ask how many switches are in there.
The most is 2.
Oh, okay.
Most of them are 1 switch in the closet.
Gotcha.
So, the hardest part with that is just finding time, because we do have to take parts of the sheriff's building offline
Sure.
to do the switch. So that's just the biggest hurdle right there, is just making time. Yes.
You said take parts of the sheriff's offline, so is there, obviously that's coordinating, that there's no safety risks or anything with taking parts of them offline?
Correct. Yeah, we coordinate with, for example, the one we did last week was in the jail, so we worked with one of the captains and sergeants in the jail. We schedule it with their permission, and we ask what's best for them. And they still have radio access, so they can still have means of communication. And these switchovers are literally about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, yeah, good question though. I know a lot of them will have to be done at like 4 a.m. in the morning, where it's least disruptive. So we'll just work that out with the sheriff and whatever captain is in that area of the sheriff's office that we're going to work with. So that's moving right along. That's good, going going good. And then next year, we will start at the Public Agency Center to get rid of some of those switches that are end of support now and end of service. That will start next year as well.
Hey, Joel, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So with regard to the child support document scanning project that you know that you have on here, so is that are those archived documents that so the agency they don't actually use paper?
I think they are paper right now.
They're paper. So this isn't archive stuff; it's stuff they create right now.
I believe there's both the stuff they create now and archive stuff. A lot of, and I'd have to talk to our county attorney to get more information on that. I know it's a costly project, so I think that's kind of why it's been put to the side. But that's one thing I want to maybe look at for moving that to 26 so we get adequate funding for that. And that would be working with Brad. And that might have to be hiring an outside firm to come in, literally scan documents. Yeah, it was one project I inherited. I don't know too many details on it. I just know at very high level. I think it's paper, managing paper.
Really? It just seems.
It seems goofy in a digital age.
It seems.
Yes.
You'd think you'd have your own database for that and their own software program and their own.
Right.
And they don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of the old archive stuff.
There's no state software. There's no uniform reporting software for in the child support agency.
Yeah, the state has theirs, and I'm not like I say, I'm not too sure on all the details there. But there's definitely something I'm going to look into, and see what cost it is and what we have to do to move that. I know a lot of systems are automated, or not automated, but digitized already. So we have apps for various, like the contracts that we have in the county.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure it would be something similar to this. This is just getting the manpower to scan in maybe all archives and some of the processes that they're doing.
To update it or upgrade it at some point where you're not, right, where we're not scanning things and we're not.
That's where I want to get.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Yep,
Okay.
that's where I want to get. So, but no, good question. And I wish I knew more. I wish I could provide you a better answer on that one. That was just something I inherited from
No, I understand.
Dave
So,
Barber.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Part of the enhancements to cybersecurity, I am going to move back the dates on the build out our cybersecurity vulnerability management software. Now that we have our security officer hired, we can start to look at that process, as we get him intertwined into the Washington County ways, which I will introduce him later.
Okay.
And as of yesterday, I would say we have completely onboarded the town of West Bend into our IT shared services. We have kind of all the initial checklist things that we wanted to implement. So firewalls, access points, antivirus software, backups, all that's in place now. So we're turning them over to a support model where they'll call us when they need support. So
Okay.
I'm excited to move on with that. And on January 8th, I will start our kickoff meeting with the town of Erin, which was previously approved by the county board for IT shared services. I did also meet with the town of Hartford, yesterday as well, and presented, the plan that, we had that we pretty much do with every municipality, where, hey, we want to, bring in these security items, these tools, and it was very favorable. They asked that if we could maybe speak to their board on their January meeting, because if they had any questions about the service. So they're very interested, and it looks like they want to go forward with services with us as well. So if they approve, what I will do is bring it back to this committee for approval, and we'll see where we're at when we get there. But it's very favorable. And it looks like more and more of these smaller towns and villages are starting to call me instead of me trying to reach out to them, which is very good.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that because is this all of the ones we've done service with so far, or have you taken some of the ones that we've completed off of here, or is this all of them?
This is all of them so far.
Okay, so we got 6 of 20 municipalities, right, in Washington County?
Yes.
I'm assuming maybe the city of West Bend won't do it, and maybe city of Hartford may not, but it seems like the townships are grabbing on.
It seems like the townships. I know there is interest, from like the Village of Germantown. We spoke with them.
Right.
But, that's a bigger strategy for them. And then, now the town of Hartford. But it seems like the towns and villages who have very small staff are
small
very
budgets.
interested. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
So, any further questions on the quarterly EOS reports?
Any questions? I don't think so. We're good.
Awesome. Okay, to move on to the next item. I think I have 3 in a row. That's lucky
Okay.
me. So I just want to kind of give you a end of year report on our IT shared services. So we have those core 5 municipalities that I mentioned, but we also do provide IT support for some police departments that are not shared services customers. For example, as you guys know, we're doing some dispatching for the Village of Germantown and the Village of Hartford. So when we work with them, they use our applications, our CAD software for the sheriff's office. They use those applications, so we help kind of support and get them up and running in that aspect. So that's why on this report, you'll see some more hours for like the Village of Germantown. Well, they're not a shared customer, yes, but we put in a lot of effort, especially with the dispatching services that we're kind of taking over. All in all, from January 1st to November 30th, we have about 648 hours, almost 649 hours of county IT time touching other municipality systems and working with them, supporting them. Equates to about 31% of our work week is actually dedicated to other municipalities, this is great. I think it's a great offering. And right now we're managing, it's not an extra burden for us, but I think it's added value for the county and for the taxpayers.
Sure.
And as I mentioned before, Town of Hartford, we had a good discussion with them. We're in discussion with the Village of Germantown and seeing how we can make that work. And then Town of Farmington also kind of put a feeler out there as well.
Okay.
Yep. Hey, Doug. So no, that's good. All in all, I'm happy to report that, IT shared services, I think, are working really well.
Okay.
Any
Sounds good.
questions on IT shared services?
I guess we're good.
All right.
We've been very thorough.
Excellent. So tonight I get a partner in crime with me. So I'd actually like to introduce Eric Mesa. He's our IT infrastructure manager and information security officer. So Eric joins us from Milwaukee County's, not Timmerman, Mitchell Airport. He worked there the last year and a half.
Yep.
So I'll let him say a quick hi and introduce
Yeah,
himself.
it's okay. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Eric Mesa. As Joel said, about a year and a half at Mitchell Airport. So touching on some security aspects, I was involved with some of the initiatives for kind of similar to like CGIS. We had TSA mandates that we had to implement. So some experience there. It's just transitioning to a new environment and learning how things operate here. So everything's been great so far. It's day 4. I'm still here. So just want to introduce myself and thank you.
When you started talking IT, just so you know, you went right over my head. But hello.
Sure.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.
Yeah, we are excited to have Eric on the team, and I want to thank you guys for making that possible. I think it makes a big impact to what we can provide the county as well as these smaller municipalities when we do their IT shared services. Because part of that will be security that we can offer the municipalities. So thank you for allowing that to happen. Just a couple of quick updates. So we did have a state of Wisconsin CGIS audit, which you may have heard about. And now we're starting to, now that we have our kind of our action plan to make some of these new changes per the new policy, we're going to start implementing things like a 30-minute lockout screen. So if someone steps away from their computer for 30 minutes, it's automatically going to lock, which is a good security practice. CGIS requires on any system in the county that has a login banner that says, hey, we are monitoring. So that's what that login banner is about. A password policy requiring 12 characters, change every 90 days. These are just some standard security practices that we're going to put in place that meet the CJIS requirements, also NIST standards, so National Institute of Security and Technology. We're meeting those recommendations as well, which is really, really exciting.
Question, when you're on that 30-minute lockout, how is that 30-minute come about? Because I know where I work, we've got 15 minutes. 15 minutes it locks out and we have to put our password back in. But I'm just curious, how is that 30 minutes? Is that enough time?
So we looked at what's least intrusive for the sheriff's department. The CJIS policy requires 30 minutes.
Advanced search.
Oh, okay.
Boards and commissions.
We have AI over here. So 30 minutes is what meets the requirements for CJIS, and that's less intrusive for the sheriff's departments when it comes to public safety, stuff like that. So usually 15, 30 minutes is about the normal. Yep. Oh, sorry, CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Systems or Services.
Sometimes these acronyms.
I know. I'm sorry. I got to get used to slowing that down.
Yeah.
But yes, Criminal Justice Information Systems.
Okay.
So it's a federal policy that the FBI puts out and it says, hey, if you're in law enforcement, you have to abide by these rules or you can't practice law. So that's what the CJIS policy is.
Mr. Chair, if I may, it's also note that Joel has been working very closely with the sheriff's departments as representatives on this. It's been a long process. The book used to be about that thick. Now the book is that thick of stuff that they have to do. So this is not just an IT thing. It's a sheriff's department thing as well. They've been instrumental in helping us and making us as low impact as possible. And you might see some other stuff come before the board for funding and stuff like that just because of those CJIS requirements that we talked about. So public safety, I believe, saw that earlier this week, and so you might be seeing that at the board level as well. So there's a financial component to this too on the other end besides the stuff we're doing internally. But you can imagine a sheriff's deputy in the field has a computer in their squad car, and now they walk away for 30 minutes, now they come back in, and now they got to go in. So don't get me wrong, it's going to be an inconvenience for them, but one that is required. So we are trying to minimize the impact as much as possible. You can imagine a sheriff's deputy, 15 minutes, that's a very short period of time to be gone. And so that's what we're trying to extend out as far as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. You notice that may look different. It's probably because of the white hair that the CJIS policy has added to the stress in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Scott said, it really has gone from a policy about this thick in paper to about like that. And it's only going to get worse as you hear about more of these cybersecurity threats.
Yeah, and as a county board supervisor, we often also look at how much is it costing us every time the federal or state government asks us to do something, right? And again, is this a federal mandate or is this state?
This is federal.
This is federal.
Yeah, this is from
Okay.
the
So-
FBI.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's two audits that happen. So the State Department of Justice gets involved, and then the FBI can get involved. In the Public Safety Committee, they did mention that we may have a possible audit from the feds coming up in 2025. We don't know, but we were about due. So that's one thing we want to make sure we're
Oh, so
tackling
they
all
don't give
these.
you a heads up, they just show up kind of thing?
They give you a very minimal heads up.
And there's a reason for that, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah. They do tell you, hey, this state and maybe southeastern Wisconsin, but they don't tell you which municipalities
Sure.
until it gets closer.
Okay. Any other questions? Is that it then?
Uh,
Looks like we went through 3 things, right?
Yeah, just one more thing on security.
Oh, gotcha.
So results from our October cybersecurity awareness training. So every October we do cybersecurity awareness training.
Sure.
It was sent out to 622 individuals, and I'm actually sad to say only 52% completed that. This is one thing I may bring forward in the future, that we make this a mandatory training. I think it's important. What I want to do is I want to look at who's completing the trainings and then who's failing phishing attempts. And we'll say, hey, this could be a result of these people are failing phishing attempts, clicking on bogus emails, and I see they have not completed the training. So we're going to get some statistics on that, and we're going to look into that. But I think that might be something I bring forward to the future. It's the security training's about 40 minutes a month. There's, 9 little videos that they can play at their own leisure. So I don't think it's asking a lot of burden on people's time, but I think it is very critical, especially in the technology age that we are.
Does it 622 go?
So that's all employees of Washington County. Yep. And I think we exempt the board from that, but it's all the knowledge workers, the sheriffs, all the departments.
Some days I'm wondering if you should not include us. I mean, we get them too. And a lot of times I recognize them because I believe you had a little talk about this before, about, being aware of who's sending it
Oh,
before you click on
absolutely.
it, right?
Yep.
So that's helped. And I think having another reminder, maybe once a year, would maybe behoove us, right?
There you go.
Just to keep any problems down. So, okay.
Yep. And then the last thing, I know when we talked a couple months ago, we talked about our security audit. And one of the things that killed us was the vulnerability and security patches installed on computers. We did purchase a new software that kind of managed that. And I will say, in the matter of a week, we are 88% compliant and updated in a matter of a week. The software's working, and a lot of those computers that are not compliant or not updated, they just haven't been turned on in a while. So as soon as it turns on, we'll catch them and we'll get them updated. So I'm happy to report that things are working.
I'm happy to report mine's updated, and it asks me damn near every time I turn it on.
Yes, that's a good thing.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we're good. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we went through B, C, D, and we're on to E, Transit Quarterly Report. Does anybody have any questions, or did you want to make some comments before we look at the numbers here?
You'll notice that ridership did go down this month. Did go down for agency trips. That's because with the holiday week of Thanksgiving, some facilities were closed that the agency riders normally would go to.
Yeah, I noticed it's been pretty consistent with being down since 2020, which is, I believe, why we're going to have some more conversations regarding this. Any other questions on the numbers from the committee?
Oh, I also, one more note is on the second page with the chart, the average trips by hour and day of week. I included bars on that chart for the number of drivers compared to the number of trips per day.
Ah, okay. Does make sense. I don't know if we've asked before, but I think somebody did ask before. Is there any way of knowing what the trips are for at the 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. time frame where it drops way down? I mean, obviously, when the doctor's offices are open and stuff like that and work, but I'm just curious as to why. I mean, we already talked about the 9 o'clock and beyond, but where we only have like 3 riders a day, do we have any idea of what are those riders doing? Are they going to work? Are they going to a church function? Or do we have any idea of what and who? And
We can get that data for those trips. It is self-reported, but we can get that data.
yeah,
for
if we
those
could
times.
get a little information as well as Saturdays and Sundays, and I think we'll be discussing this further later on.
Okay.
And is it the next? Yeah, the next agenda item.
So trip purposes after 6 p.m.
Yeah. Yes. Just so we can kind of think of what other options we may have to cover those times, if there's a certain purpose for them.
Okay. Yep, I can get that data in the next report. We will have the reduced. Let's see, the reduction goes into effect next month.
Yep, January. Yep.
Yes, January.
Right, so January's numbers will in January, have December numbers yet, so just kind of take that with a
Oh,
grain of salt,
yes.
knowing that that's what you're going to get to see all 3 hours, and then after that, it'll only be, a shorter period of time. But we can get you that data, we can provide it, no problem in going back all year long if you want. It's it's data we have plenty of.
Awesome.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, is that what we want the year?
Well, I'm sorry.
Did we want for 2024 for the whole year? The after 6 p.m.?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, at least get kind of an average of kind of where do people mostly like to go, if we can, just so we know how it's being utilized. And then we can add to that the conversations of what do we do with the service moving forward? Where do we prioritize? Okay?
Yes, and I think you'll see in a later agenda item, when we talk about weekends, what kind of data we have, and if that's the acceptable format that you want back, then, or if there's something different, we can provide that. So we can talk about that a little bit later too, as far
Sure.
as formatting is concerned.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, or we move on to F, Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. I believe this is still just a discussion item.
Let's see, looks like it does require approval from the committee.
Oh, so we gotta take a motion? That's what you're asking for? Okay.
Yes, I can give some context here. So the Federal Transit Administration requires 5307 recipients to have a Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP. This covers safety and security measures in place by transit agencies. WSDOT provided a template, and it was updated and approved by the Public Works Committee in 2020. And FDA announced in September a new requirement to be listed in the PTASP, the risk of assault on transit workers in vehicles and facilities. They also requested a list of tools to mitigate these risks. We currently use 6 of the 10 tools listed, and we're planning on adding a 7th. That'd be posting signage in vehicles and facilities about any penalties for misconduct in vehicles or transit facilities. The rest of the PTASP was updated to reflect current management staff, remove computer express language from 2020, and any updates from the provider regarding standard safety measure, safety measures in their facilities.
Okay, well, I guess I'll ask for a motion in a second then, to bring it up.
I'll make the motion.
Supervisor McCulick, second by Supervisor Hartwig. I know we can discuss it. Anybody have any discussions or any questions on this?
A lot of information there.
Yeah, there's a lot of red line and,
To make a decision on that, and I really wasn't aware that there was gonna be action items on there, so to make any kind of action on it, it really,
I think it's just basically updating the plan though, right?
It's updating the plan and including that risk that was a new requirement. for
The new
plan.
requirement by federal, so it's kind of like a standard that we gotta abide by kind of deal.
Yes. Let's see.
Supervisor McCool?
Yeah, I would add, that they're just updating the information that Charlie mentioned, and then the cost is just quantifying that, that risk assessment to the drivers, and then the, under $200 for the printing and posting of the permanent signage regarding assaults or possible assaults on transit workers. So, I mean, there's a lot there, but this isn't really, much of a change at all. It's just an update.
Update on information.
Yeah. Seems pretty boilerplate to me at this point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and yeah, it's a long file here.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, or did you have anything else, Charlie, that you wanted to update us on?
Let's see. So the last page of that has has some of the tools listed that the FTA offered, tools to mitigate the risk. So the 6 that we have: automatic vehicle location, communication protocols, covert overt emergency alarms, de-escalation training, operating policies and procedures. The one we will be adding is signage informing riders of penalties, and then the last one is video and audio surveillance.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good. Sounds good. Moving on to the next item, shared ride taxi weekend analysis, and this is something that we discussed before. Now, do we need a motion on this, or is it just a discussion, right?
Correct. I'd like to tee this one up for you. Yes, this is just a discussion item, not an action item, and I can explain why that is. You may recall from last month's discussion about reducing hours of operation that any reduction like that would potentially need a public hearing or a public meeting at that point. And so this one would obviously be what we would consider over 10%, which would need a public hearing if you want to decide to that. So it was discussed at that point, and since we weren't discussing elimination of the weekend hours, we thought it would be best to bring it back to the committee as a discussion item first to see if that's the true feeling of the committee and timing of this we want to talk about as well. And so that's why you're bringing it forward to the committee at this time, and to give you some of that data that we just talked about earlier about what that looks like going forward. So what we did was Charlie was able to gather the data about what our weekend ridership looks like as far as the numbers of riders, the number of trips that were provided, as well as generally speaking where those people go. Again, it's generally speaking, it's for lack of better terminology, it's for most of 2024. The data that you see, as you can imagine, not through the end because we're not done with 2024 yet. And so you'll see a bunch of exhibits inside the document, and we didn't want to try to overwhelm you with too much data, but we want to make sure you got enough data to look at information. And Exhibit A is showing the trips purposes both for Saturday and Sunday. So we did separate them out by not just the weekend, but by specific day of the weekend, so that the committee can see, in case you want to do some kind of hybrid instead of eliminating the weekends altogether, but want to look at potentially changing times and all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure you had a full amount of data. And so up above, you'll see the tables of data, and sometimes it's nice to see that same data in a pie chart type format, so you can get a good percentage-wise too. So you can see the actual numbers of what that is, and then versus the percentages in the pie chart. So you'll see for Sunday, and again, I want to point out, and Charlie mentioned this earlier, these are all self-reported. So if somebody tells us that they're going for education and training, we don't verify that, double check and triple check and stuff like that. So so you got to take those with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I think most people are truthful as far as where they go, because it really doesn't make a difference to us where we're taking them. And so you can see that we have the trip purpose in the left-hand column, in the upper left, on Sunday, total trips, the trip percentages that you'll see, and then the number of individuals. So you'll see that what I pointed out is number of individuals is important, because you'll see that education and training was 2 total trips, and it was 2 different people. And you'll see the employment was 293 trips for 32 people. So you can see they're taking it multiple times per year, not just one time a year. And it's a one-off or something like that, but someone maybe is more relying on the service on the weekends. Then we still have medical and nutrition, most likely grocery store or stuff like that, personal business, as well as social and recreation. So I know there's some potential overlap in what that means, but that's what the categories are chosen for this. So you'll see those for Sunday. You'll see that social and recreational is about 41%, employment 34%, personal business 18%, and then obviously the other parts of the pie chart as well. And then below that, we also wanted to point out the elderly disabled versus other riders, because that was important as far as when we did the fare increase, as far as how we're impacting them. So we want to break it down a little bit further for you as well, to say that it's the elderly disabled on Sundays, about 82% of our rides, and 18% is other, whether they're youth or adults. And so you see the same information is brought to you for on Saturday as well. So I don't want to gloss over Saturday or skip over it, but just that it's basically the same type of information. So no real need to run that again, because we love spreadsheets as well in the highway department and transit. And so we want to provide you a kind of a cost breakdown of what that would look like financially. I know there are a lot of numbers in there, and we want to, again, provide you numbers, but most importantly, we want to look at 2024. And what we did was we bold, make sure that in the first column under Sunday, you'll see the billed hours, but then the total cost And this does extrapolate out to the end of 2024 too, Charlie, correct? Estimated?
Yeah,
Or
it's
the-
for the full year.
Full year, yep. So we kind of estimated December as far as how we were going out. So you can see that the total cost for Sundays for the entire year was $44,000 total cost. And then we broke that down into what the federal share was and state share. And then at the far right-hand side, the local levy. And there's all sorts of columns in there for our grants that we get, our fares that we get, and then the total trips. So that's we tried to make sure we bold or highlighted those ones that were actually impactful for the weekend. So if, for instance, in 2024, if you want to eliminate Sundays, you would have saved the county levy $3,400, $3,416. The federal share, $26,000. So a rough savings of about $30,000 to the taxpayers of the United States. If you eliminated Saturdays, you would save the federal state government about $63,000 and the local levy about $8,000. So around grand total about $70,000. Down below, we sum that up for the weekend total of the $150 altogether, and then again the federal share and the local levy. And so that we want to give you kind of a flavor for what kind of costs are we talking about. The levy amount for transit is roughly $350,000 a year. We are offsetting that in 24 and 25 with some ARPA funds yet. And so sometimes all the numbers might not match up all perfectly, as you just heard the 8521 grant earlier as well. So, and what we tried to do was project that off into 2025 and what that would look like in 2025. Again, based on the numbers, we're looking at an increase in service fare costs from our provider right now, and we're working with them to provide that service fee for 2025. So we've been in negotiations for the last few months on that, and we're getting really close to finalizing that. But we tried to put a contracted dollar rate in there and look at what it would look like in 25, because 24 doesn't really matter for 25. So you'll see an increase in there because of the rate increase. And so you'll see that if you were looking at eliminating the weekend hours in 25, you'd be saving the county taxpayers $8,000 for Sundays, and then the $19,000. So roughly $27,000 potential savings. Again, we'd have to work with our vendor and hours. And did you want to shift those hours to the week? Did you want to just eliminate those hours altogether? Which means your hourly rate might go up because of timing and stuff. And what we're looking at doing this today, and one of the reasons we're talking about this is that we may or may not be going out for an RFP. At some point this year, we will be going for an RFP. We're in our last year of our contract this year. And so it'd be nice to know if that's what your decision point is, especially before budget hits in January. So we're not looking for an immediate answer on this, but definitely was brought up by one of the committee members last month. And so we try to get you as much information as possible. We're certainly working at other options as far as 26 and 27 is concerned for budgeting and finance, because those ARPA dollars do end and they'll be gone. And how do we fund the project, shared ride taxi going forward? So we're currently looking at other options as well. So the weekends was definitely a tool in our toolbox that we're looking at for 26 and 27. The committee is certainly aware that we're in the middle of our 2-year budget cycle. So we have the funds were allocated for this program, in 2025. So just want to point that out as well. So this would, like I mentioned earlier, would need to go to a public hearing. Then that would be in front of this committee to discuss that. We would like to have the proper notices out there as well. So I think we'd have a little more concern from the residents on the weekend hours. I know we had a slight fare increase, and we were able to mitigate a lot of those concerns by having a public information meeting earlier. With this one, it's a pretty cut and dry. There's not a lot of explanation to go into a discussion point. As far as like fares and revenues, we had a lot of discussion points, but if you're talking about just eliminating a service for the weekend, it's pretty cut and dry, where we can explain that in about 10 seconds to the public. So with that, Mr. Chair, this is certainly a policy decision that is at the purview of the committee, and I would want to make sure we provide as much information. If there's more information that you think you may need, we'd certainly be willing to provide that as well.
It'd be interesting to hear what the public would think about this. If we do go, if the committee decides that, let's take a look and get feedback from the public on what they think about weekend, if we would cut it out. as well as what other options do we have? Is say the county doesn't provide it, but another service would provide it as well and be able to do it at a cheaper rate than what we could as another possible cost savings. I don't like to cut services back from the elderly and disabled if we don't have to, but like you say, when you look at the numbers sometimes, even if the money's coming from the federal government, it's coming from the taxpayer. So that's something to always consider. So does anybody else in the committee have any thoughts that they'd like to share?
I'm
Joel?
thinking about, you had mentioned age, and I don't know if it's possible. An age range of the people, I mean, or is it mostly the elderly that are using it on the weekend, or, you know,
Yes.
is it the young people? I guess I'd like to know.
So if,
It's on here.
Yeah, it's on here, it's on the first.
if you go to the first
Yep, on
exhibit,
the trips by group.
Exhibit A,
The first
pie
one,
chart.
it's, 82%.
Yep.
Okay, so 82%, a lot of it's the older people that are
Is
using
elderly
it.
described as 60 or older?
Yes, 60 and over.
60 and over for our service, correct. So if you look at the chart in the lower left, Supervisor Spalek, if you go down, I can see your computer screens, go down a little bit more. Yep, the bottom left shows Sunday is 80% elderly and disabled, so we did lump them together. And then the right-hand side is 79% on Saturday. So I round those numbers to about 80% for the weekend, if you look, of course, the whole year. So if it is purview to look at other options, as the chair said, we certainly can come back over the next several months with other options that are out there for looking at a service and get you some more information on what that might look like as well versus eliminating the service at this point for the weekends.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think we can make a decision to cut services without knowing what other options are there. 80% of the elderly, I think we really need to have all the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is that the direction we should go for now? Is just get more information as to other options? Or are you still interested in having a public hearing to see what the public might say on this? Or just see what we have first for other
I would
options?
say before we go the public hearing route, I myself would like to hear the other options for them. And then once we have all the information is, what are there, what else can they do to get to where they need to go?
Mm-hmm.
And once we have that, then we can have a public hearing and have all the information.
Offer them other,
Yeah, because I don't think it would, to try to have a public hearing without having that information, I think wouldn't do it justice.
yes. I agree.
Supervisor Newman is
Oh, sorry.
like to speak.
Thank you.
I'm just pointing it out. I'm not calling on you,
No,
Doug.
no, that's okay. Thank you.
Just so you can see him behind you.
Sometimes you gotta yell
So
at me,
I'm
Doug.
very familiar with how this taxi service works, and in my opinion, you do need to find some options, because that local share, that levy amount is, regardless, making these changes, you're gonna see it rise, rise, rise. It's historical, ridership is going down, and right now, it's got 350,000, next year it's 400-some thousand, and we don't know exactly what the 2026 is gonna be, because it's gonna be an RFP, and those costs are gonna go up, guaranteed. Was that the correct numbers?
In round numbers, yes. I mean, we were anticipating, again, when you're in contract negotiation, it's always tough to estimate. And the last several years with the rate of inflation and everything else going on, it's very tough to say what our vehicle is going to cost in 26 and 27. So, yeah, we were anticipating about $450,000 in 26. I think it was $550, something like that. Yes, when the ARPA funds run out, the local share definitely increases, and we'll also be transferring over from the federal to just the state-only pot of money as well. So we're definitely open to other conversation, as I mentioned last month, to other municipalities. I'm looking right at Mr. Newman on that one too, and he has indicated a willingness to have some conversations on that as well. So we will look at options all over the board on this. Without a doubt, Charlie's a good individual to put on that type of project and working with contacts throughout the state and see what other municipalities are doing as well.
So following that thought process then, is that what everybody would like to see? If we can find other options for weekends and possibly some low-budget stuff? Do we have kind of a time frame, Scott, that you're looking for? I mean, are you thinking January, or is it going to take maybe till February to get all this put together?
It's going to take us a little bit of time on this. I'd say we would be shooting for it before budget season hits.
So February, March, or maybe later.
April into May,
April.
maybe even at the latest.
Yeah, because I mean, if we go to a public hearing, then I mean, we're going to need time for that as well,
Correct.
right?
Yep, well,
So-
that's what I'm saying, the whole process before
Yeah.
budget time hits.
Yep.
So that you'd be done and have that discussion maybe beforehand. We want to, when we provide this information to you, as we did right here, we want to give you really solid numbers.
Sure.
Not just estimates of industry averages, but actually have true conversations with other entities and seeing what they would be.
Sounds good?
And just one last thing is service area. I just started to think of service, this is not just West Bend, but it's all of Washington County, is that correct?
Correct. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, that, so the shared ride taxi system is within the whole county. We do go into Ozaki County. We do City West Bend to City West Bend rides when Washington County provides door-to-door service. So that means we will go to the door and help them out their door, and wherever they're going, get them into the door. The City of West Bend provides curb-to-curbside service. That's why we're not, again, part of that federal, state money. We can't duplicate a service, and that's why ours are different on that. And so not saying one's better than the other, but that's the difference. So we do provide a limited amount of city-to-city rides, but typically speaking, most of our rides are from one municipality to another within our county.
Thank you.
So everybody, Supervisor McCulick.
Yeah, just so an observation, on the numbers here, the numbers aren't huge, but as the percentages, the usage is flat or declining, but if you look at it, like for next year, the cost to provide that just on the county level is like 2.5x what it is this year. And in total, it's a difference between 100,000 and 130,000. So, another 30%. And the cost per ride on a weekend is substantially higher than it is on the weekday. I know there's some economies of scale with that, but I mean, there's sort of an inevitability to this that I see, that it's just with some of the things happening with our ARPA money going away and things like that. These are the kind of decisions that we're going to have to, to deal with.
Yep.
And so, the data on where they're going, the trip purposes, information, that kind of thing, that's all good to know. But these are the kinds of things that we have to look at. And so invariably, you're going to have somebody that isn't happy, but it's definitely got to be on the table, right?
Absolutely. And if I could add to that too, that's why I was wondering about when I talked before about the night hours, the 9 o'clock, if we could look at that. Does it make more sense to cut the night back to 8 o'clock and maybe keep a little weekend hours? If we look at the whole program and rethink it, restructure it, maybe that's more prudent than just looking at weekends too. So.
It's just in that conversation, if we're looking at other options for them, can we work in the hours that those options are available? Does that make sense? We're looking at other options for the people. If we determine that we need to move away from this and there are other things in that data, the hours of operation that those might be available if we're looking at it to that point. So if there are other options for these people, what time do those go till? Do they go 5? Are there later things that we can get them into at 9 o'clock and we don't have to do that anymore? It'd just be nice to know that information in order to make a
You mean if the
decision.
riders have the ability to
Exactly, yeah.
change
So
and
the
go
other
earlier?
resources that are available to them.
In the later hours to that. So if
Sure.
we decide to
And if there
move
aren't
away
any-
from the 8, well, hey, you know what? X has 3 that are running here 9 o'clock at night. It would just be nice to know if there
What
are
if
other
there
things
aren't any?
out there. Then we can say, you know what, hey, these are your options. This is just not feasible for us.
Yes.
But here is something for you, not just to say, you know what, the heck with it. And I like to have that information to make a good. It would be a lot easier to make a decision. Knowing
And I
that.
think that's what they'll do is they'll
Yep.
research
It's the
that and see
timeline.
what other options we
Yeah.
have. So, Any other questions,
Yeah,
or?
I'd say, Scott or Charlie, the other thing would be important to know is from the provider, if there's like a model or a blend, so you talked about, and this is just speaking, if you eliminated Saturday and Sunday, but does it increase your, the contract cost because you don't have that? Is there some type of a model or a blend, you know what I mean, that sort of maximizes, hey, look, we could do this, and the best bang for your dollar is, a schedule that looks like this. Maybe it's the most attractive to their drivers or whatever that we can do if they, you know what I mean? Do you know?
Our provider happens to be in the audience, and that is something that he just heard, so we go work with him on that,
Okay,
yes.
oh, great, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, you know what I mean? Whatever
I do
model they
understand.
have based on their, on the drivers or the schedules, what's, where they can schedule people, where, where, again, where the best value.
Yes, we
Sweet spot lies.
we certainly do that. We worked with the vendor when we were doing our hours, just as what you saw last month,
Yeah.
to see about riders, their drivers and stuff like that. So yes, we can certainly work with them, keep the working on with them, yes.
Yeah, so you model something that, okay, yep, thank you.
Awesome. So we got a kind of a thumbs up or a direction now of where to go? We're okay with that now?
I feel we have good direction. I appreciate the conversation that the committee had on this.
Awesome. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item H, update 2024-25 strategic priorities. Now, you guys got to let me know if I need a motion on this or not.
We do not.
All right, just
No.
a discussion item. I know
It's
that.
just discussion only.
Okay.
What we're looking at is you'll have in front of you, you've got the three strategic priorities that we have going, and we certainly will probably be adding more after your retreat that you're looking at doing it in January. These are incomplete, as you saw the early ones that Josh did. So these are kind of a real outline and draft that most of them were completed in their current stages already. As the committee may know, lead laterals we've been working on for a while, the 2050 plans that for the local municipalities and for the county we're bringing back, and then the county campus master plan, which is currently underway. And so what we're looking at doing is building these out for the future, for the next 2-year cycle as well. So what you see in there is kind of more or less what was done. What I need to do before next committee meeting or February meeting is to build these out with some new dates, new goals. I got to work with Chairman Shudron with the master plan one to get new dates in there and stuff like that. So these are just barely brought to your attention today to know what was out of your last session, what was done before, how we're doing on those, and then how we're looking at doing these forward. So basically, if you have any comments about any of those three of ones that we'd certainly be willing to listen to and take into account, and want to bring them back forward to you next month or the next month after that, you can certainly add comments at that point. For the lead laterals, for instance, obviously we have a plan in place. The village of Kewaskum is now complete, so that's very extremely positive. They are now lead lateral free. Village of Slinger, hopefully beginning part of this coming year in 25, will be lead free as well. Continue to be working with the city of West Bend. They had completed several of their street projects already with some lead laterals, and so waiting on invoice requests from them to make the payments for 2024, and then start work with the city of Hartford is our next goal to go around. And as you go through the budget process this year, you'll see this come back before you as well. And if you so desire to fund it, we will then make it happen, go into those municipalities and with a stretch goal of obviously having lead-free communities in Washington County. So that's the lead lateral one. The 2050 plans, we are behind. You'll see the goal is in red, working with the city of Hartford and the town of Farmington to get those presented to those municipalities. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do those in December, and it's looking like January or February. I'll be working with those municipalities to present them. Both have been presented with the final version, or final draft version, I should say, and ready to go to their councils and boards. It's just a matter of coordination now more than anything between my schedule for Farmington. I couldn't make it that 1 week. So we'll get there with those municipalities. They've seen it, they have it, and obviously their budget's passed right now, so they'll have it for next year's budget. And we'll be picking some more municipalities and hoping to get those done yet this calendar year. Addison has reached out. We're looking for potential another partner. I believe Jackson has mentioned it in the past, so I'll be reaching out to them to see if there's interest in those. And the county master plan, as I mentioned, I'll be meeting with the chairman here to kind of better fill that all out.
It's a work in progress.
It is a work in progress. We'll be getting these to you. If anybody has any comments, either now or would like to contact myself or the chairman, we can certainly work that through. But so just let you know, these are 3 initiatives that came up before. We'll be working on these for the next several years. And as well as once you have your retreat, there could be other ones coming your way too that you'd be interested in.
Okay. Any questions? Awesome. Seeing none. Our next meeting date is January 16th, 2025. This meeting's adjourned.
And Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we do have a quorum, even though it may not look that way. We have Supervisor Pridemore and Supervisor Conrath are zooming in, as well as Supervisor Krebs. So actually, we are all in attendance. They just didn't brave the weather today. But Supervisor Mary did. Thank you for showing up and keeping me company today. Okay, first thing is the minutes. Any questions or things that need to be missing items, anything? Hearing none, I will accept the minutes as being approved. We have these pass-through items, the LWRM contract and payment. I think we'll run those together. We'll take a motion on those.
So move.
Moved by Supervisor Mary.
Ladies, speak up.
Conrath, second.
And Conrath will second. Thank you very much. Okay, so these are pass-through checks. Jamie, anything we have to note or notice on any of these? No. Okay, so these are just pass-through payments. We've done these in the past. They're just a formality. All approved, saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a change. One of our guests, who's at the end, will be here all night for the USDA APHIS Wildlife Damage and Abatement Program claims. I don't need to know that I'll need to necessarily have you speak, sir. This is just for damaged crops, correct?
Yep, it is.
So this is just a reclamation. This is basically very similar to what we just passed. It's a pass-through item, just a check for damaged crops from wildlife damage. So take a motion. Supervisor Pridemore. Second. Supervisor Mary. All right, any questions? All right, all approving saying aye. 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 Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, I will consider it passed. I will then duly sign the document for the payment and pass it off.
Thank you.
Moving on, Washington County Land Information Plan 2024 update. What we're going to do on this update is, I hope you read it. It's somewhat lengthy, and basically what it is what we've been doing as far as
Use the right lane to take the Wisconsin 91 west. Right on. Not me.
So what it basically is all the things that we've done in land survey markers and digitizing all of our information and all those types of things. This is required by the state, is to have a master plan, which we've done. It's here. It is submitted for your review, but it's not something that we necessarily need to vote on or approve. It is a discussion item. Are there any questions on this item? Okay, so hearing none, I will just consider this item as being basically acknowledged. We've got it. Thank you very much for the information, and we're good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to express our thanks to Mr. Damcott and the other staff. It's a huge document, it's a huge undertaking, and I was involved with some of the discussions on it, and congratulations for getting it done. There's a lot of time spent just preparing it, and it's the sort of thing that is required on a regular basis, and it's one of those headache jobs nobody wants to do, but we got it done. And thanks to Eric. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mary. I appreciate that. Supervisor Mary, excuse me. Where's my formality? Okay, moving on. Item C, Land Water Conservation Plan 5-year update. We have Mr. Paul Backus here.
Thank you. I got a presentation prepared. I'm going to plug in my laptop here into the HDMI. I believe that'll make it that everyone can see my screen virtually, right?
And you're going to give us the high points.
I'll keep this moving then.
There you go. You get it.
All right. Should be. All right. So you're up on the screen. Assuming everyone can see it right now. I guess Dennis introduced me, but I'm Paul Backus. I'm the lead conservationist in the Natural Resources Department. I took over the county conservation role from Paul Siebel shortly after he retired. So today I'm going to go over our 5-year report that we need to submit to the Department of Ag as part of our Land and Water Resource Management Plan. So I won't read over everything that I put up on the screen. I know this presentation will get forwarded to you while you do read over the details, but in general, the Land and Water Plan is something that the state requires us to do. Every 10 years, we need to update it, and in the middle of the 10 years is that we need to provide an update to the Land and Water Board at DATCAP, and we're scheduled to be doing that February 4th of this year. So, like I said, it maintains eligibility for many of the grants that pass through from the state and some of the ones you already approved. The plan process is that back in 2020, there was a committee formed. Bob Hartwig was the chairperson of the committee, and it was a combination of citizen members and a couple other partner agencies. The goal of it was to have it align with our strategic priorities of the county and be citizen-driven. And not everything in this plan is coming down from Madison. There is input from the county. Just kind of keep going through it here. The goals, you can read through them too, but these were meant and done. They're in our plan. They're in your presentation too. They're meant to align with the county's strategic priorities. So getting a little more into the meat and potatoes of all this, this was in the same spreadsheet here that was in your packet that reviewed all the practices that we've installed over the last 5 years and dollar amounts, numbers, and all that. But just wanted to highlight a couple of them just to give you a little bit better understanding of what we do out in the countryside. This particular one that's in front of you right now, this was a large farm. I think it's a dairy farm on the northwest corner of the county. They were looking at expanding and investing into their operation, and as part of expanding, they were looking at manure storage, is that after they have the animals and where exactly they want to go with it so that they can store it and be able to apply it at the right time. So we worked with this farm to create, you can see that in the middle of the screen, with big 10-foot vertical walls. We helped them create a system for moving the manure from the barn into the storage, and from some of the open lots, we created a way for that water to go from the lots, be able to pump back over to the manure storage, and created a system for the large concrete slab you see more in the center bottom. That's where he stores all the feed for the farm. We collect the runoff from that and take that also back to the pit. So we take a farm where he had a pasture and open lots that were drained towards a ditch and containing that runoff and controlling it. Another practice that's a little bit less involved from the engineering standpoint is we work with a lot of landowners and talk to them about the benefits of converting farmland that is close to a stream or a lake and just converting that over to grass. So they can harvest it, they can utilize it, but this is one of our probably the biggest bang for our bucks, allowing us to kind of a grass area to help filter out anything that comes from the farm field before getting in the waterway. This one was a little more of a unique of a project, is the town abandoned a road, and then at that same time there was a bunch of issues going on with that road where there's strange issues, and every time you get a big storm, the road bed was washing out and dumping onto the neighboring properties. So we worked with the 3 landowners and the town, and we came up with converting this road into a rock line channel that could safely pass this water without causing any issues for the downstream neighbors. This farm, as we worked with them, where they had an open lot that they had their animals on, and every time it rained, the manure from the lot would be able to run in the road ditch and eventually to a nearby waterway. So we helped work with them and helped build a roof up over the lot so that this way there's no runoff coming from the lot and everything's contained. The animals are drier, it's a little easier to manage the manure, and the animals are a little drier and happier. This is another one. This one was just completed this last year. This is our Polk Springs project, in which we took a section of stream. We were looking back at old air photos and saw that the stream used to run kind of diagonal across the field, and then sometime in the 1930s it was straightened to go along the property line. So we worked with the landowner and shifted the stream back over to where it historically was located, and this happened in conjunction with the County Highway P reconstruction, in which they needed to move the stream anyways, so it turned out to be a bit of a win-win for the county, in which we're able to utilize some of the grant dollars we have for clean water to get that stream further away from the road, not have it anywhere close that somebody could drive off the road and drive into the stream. Includes safety, water quality, intended to be a win-win all around. And you can see from the pictures, especially on the left side, it was a vertical eroded bank. There's quite a bit of sediment going into the stream. Even on the bottom there, you can see where the guardrail was starting to be eroding back towards the stream. So this is one of our more common practices. It's a grass waterway. Farmers work with us. They have erosion coming through the crop fields to convert it from eroded section of ground. It's losing all the topsoil and putting it back into grass. So as you can see in the bottom of the screen, and the before and afters that in this particular site, any of the erosion that's going to the field would end up going directly into the stream. So well abandonment, when we work with on getting on the farmsteads, is one of the questions we ask is, do you have any old wells? As you can see with the one we have up on the screen, is that a lot of these are just hand dug. There's quite a few of these still left out there, and it's a good question to ask. I always find them fascinating too, because they're over 100 years old and somebody hand dug these and lined them with field stone. So as you can see, a hole in the ground like this where it's a safety issue, and then anything that could get pushed into there can contaminate groundwater. So we look at trying to fill those things in. Just cover a little bit, like this is the practice side, but a lot of the work we do is just trying to educate the public. I won't get in everything I got on the screen, but in general, we have a policy we want to educate, not regulate, in which we try to make a more informed citizens, hopefully make better decisions for the natural resources in the county. So highlight a couple of them I think are a little more unique to the county, is that in the last, say, about 5 years or so, we've seen an uptick in complaints we've gotten tied to small farms that maybe have a couple animals, a couple horses, in which one other neighbor is concerned with where they're putting the manure or managing the pastures for these animals. So kind of that same theme of education, not regulation, is we put together a horse management workshop in which we reached out to the horse owners across the county and try and give them better tips and advice on how to better manage the manure from their animals in the pastures and trying to be better neighbors and understand the impacts that they may have. At the county, we regulate, have an erosion control and stormwater management ordinance, and we going to regulate the development portion of that. And we've had that ordinance in place for about 25 years now. So over that 25 years, there's been a lot of stormwater practices installed. Like see the stormwater ponds, you usually see in those little wet basins at the bottom of development. So we periodically go back and look at these to make sure that they function correctly. And we were starting to see like a common theme of some maintenance issues that were coming up. And most of this was tied to trees. As you can see in the photo there, that's probably a classic example of some of the stuff that we see, is where that's an outlet structure, the metal thing you see in the center of that picture, that allows the water to come up from the stormwater pond. Well, there's a little tree kind of growing up through there right now. So as it's something like that right now, it's a pretty simple and quick fix. But if you let that tree continue to grow, eventually it's going to ruin the outlet structure and cause a much more expensive issue compared to where about 5 or 10 minutes of somebody with a saw to clean it all out of there. So we put together an educational session where we invited kind of everyone that had ownership stake in a stormwater basin across the county, and we got a really good attendance. 64 of subdivisions and developments were accounted for, and a lot of them end up following up and getting an idea of what exactly they can do to stay ahead of maintenance on these properties, trying to avoid the costly stuff that they may run into. Another one I wanted to touch on too is this is our AAS coordinator holds these on the lake educational series where you can take a kayak or a canoe and paddle around the lake with her, and then she'll go over the basics of lake ecology and biology and give everyone kind of a quick rundown of that and other issues that are questions that landowners may have around their lake. Ooh, sorry about that. Should have put it on silent. For education too, is one of our primary groups with the farm community that we partner with is the Cedar Creek Farmers. I know for the people that are on virtually, you'll get this email to you later, and I did provide this to Carolyn Dennis. A little bit of a background on what exactly the group has accomplished in the last year and a pamphlet of kind of background on the group. But this is a picture they presented to the county board about a year ago. And they're our primary partner of trying to educate the other farm community on clean water practices and kind of the no-till, the cover crops, the soil health, the stuff that we're focusing on here at the county. It's one thing for me to go out with not much of a farm background trying to tell a farmer to do this, but it's way more impactful for when their peers are trying to teach them about these things. So, next 5 years, just highlight a couple things that are on the horizon for us. First one is the Milwaukee River Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This is a partnership between four land conservation offices in the area: Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, Ozaukee, and in Washington County, MMSD, CLCF, and Conservation Fund, and I think the city of Cedarburg and Grafton too are all part of this partnership. We recently got a $19.2 million grant. Some of it's for land acquisition and for preserving cropland, and other focus of it too is clean water, and we had a goal for it of reducing 60,000 pounds per year of phosphorus going into the Milwaukee River watershed. This is a continuation of an existing grant we got for $7.5 million that preserved 1,500 acres and reduced 17,000 pounds of phosphorus per year. And large-scale trim grant is going to go along with our Horse Workshop Owners Educational Series, is that we're looking at kind of working a little bit more hands-on with a group of small farms in the Jackson Cedar Creek area to come up with some practices to help them better manage their manure. Our water health education project is, we do quite a bit of education right now, but we're looking at even ramping that up even further, trying to get out and have a little more events, more presentations, more of a social media reach. And the final one is, this is something that's been taken you guys recently too, is the Conservation and Heritage Grant Program, in which we're looking at utilizing the A1 conversion fees to fund a preservation of open space program. So kind of zip through that pretty quick, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have about the presentation or the report I put in the packet. But if any questions after that, if I would like to entertain a motion to approve the 5-year report to DATCAP.
Okay.
Conrath, motion to approve?
Let's, before I take the motions, let's go ahead and check for any more discussion on the item, and we'll motion at the end. Is that fair enough? Any more discussions or comments out of the committee?
I'd just like to make a comment to Paul and the team. Too often, we think about your department as being farm-oriented, agricultural-oriented, and so on. I think a good example of the outreach on this is your stormwater practice. You say you had 154 people representing 64 subdivisions. That's not farm. Those are just general homeowners and subdivision management teams. And I commend you for having that kind of outreach beyond the agricultural community.
Yeah, I know we tend to focus a lot on agriculture, but there is other programs that we do implement too, like the non-metallic mining ordinance gets implemented through our office too. So it's we deal with developers, agriculture, so we cover a swath of the county. Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much. Good report.
Thank you. Any Zoom people care to ask any questions of Mr. Backus?
No questions, but again, too, thank you. As Supervisor Mary pointed out, it's beyond, basic agriculture and farm fields like we think of, like you working with our the AIS coordinator and CLCF. So it's a larger scope. So thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I too would like to chime in to just really thank you for your work that you're doing. I believe that whole education and working with people, that's the government's job. The heavy hand of government, I believe, is mostly unnecessary. Because I believe the public will respond when you can show them the better way and show them how it affects our environment, what their actions do, and how by changing small things, which really don't seem like they necessarily cost a lot, it's just a matter of how you do things, can make a big difference. So I really applaud that. So, okay, so Ms. Conrath, would you care to resubmit your motion?
Sure.
All right. We have a first. Mr. Mary will second. And all approved, say aye. Aye. And anybody opposed, nay? And the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Backus. Appreciate your hard work.
All right. Thank you.
Moving on to sponsorship and naming rights policy at Fair Park. Jamie, you're taking this, correct?
Yes. Thank you very much. Those of you listening, my name is Jamie Ludovic. I'm the Chief Community Development Officer. Our Chief Executive Officer of the Agricultural Industrial Society, Stacy Holland, is also in attendance tonight. This item we are bringing forward because we hope to embark on a joint venture to tackle some of the conversations that we feel are needed out at Fair Park facilities with regards to the signage and the names on a bunch of the facilities. So what you actually have in your packet is a policy that we have in Washington County related to naming rights. And we are suggesting a few modifications to the parameters of the policy, with the biggest change adding Fair Park and facilities to it, and kind of the concept that we would be then, interested in kind of the parameters of your comfort level with these conversations. And then the full list is kind of listed in here for you as well. So following a decision on the policy, we would embark on a number of conversations around category 2 and 3 naming right facilities with a goal of having a mutual understanding and an agreement with everybody who has a name on one of our facilities. And then, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I just want to cover it. We are also taking the opportunity to update the list of available naming opportunities in the parks. So this was created in 2017, and we do have a couple that were sort of developed after the original policy approval. Homestead Howells presented by J.W. Speaker, and we have one, a Sandy Paws Fleet Farm Dog Park, which is actually expiring. So those all had agreements and extensions, which were negotiated by staff following the adoption of the original policy. We do have some conversations right now about attempting to solicit names out at Heritage Trails, and so we want to make sure we are posting the opportunities and following the process we put together so that we're in a position to have those conversations. So again, using that as an example, should we be in a position to be changing the name of Heritage Trails, that would trigger this committee's approval because it's in a park in its entirety. Right, so that's one of those parameters in the policy compared to if we were to say just name a trail or put a spot, youth skills area sponsored by fill in the blank or presented by fill in the blank. So that's really just a very quick overview of what's in your packet. I know there's a lot here, but we are looking to get this policy updated so we can start this work. So I'd be happy, or Stacy is here as well, and she'd be happy as well to answer any questions you have on this item.
Okay, so I trust the committee has had the opportunity to take a look at all this. So I would ask right now, any questions that you may have, bring them forward. Okay, here,
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. I appreciate the concept behind it.
Thank you. Is Mr. Krebs trying to chime in?
Is he asking a question?
I'm not sure. Mr. Krebs, are you trying to chime in?
If it's appropriate, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Question, in case I'm sorry if I missed it in the packet, but naming rights, like moving forward, is there going to be like a term limit to them, or like how often would they be before they would have to be like renewed or readdressed? Because like some of the existing naming rights I saw for like out at Fair Park, there's like no documentation related to it. So I'm wondering, are those kind of in perpetuity, or is there, how often are we trying to readdress those or make sure that they're still wanted or needed?
Yeah. So the goal is that we have a contract and a date, for lack of a better way to say it, for every name on our facility. The answer to your question, though, is there's no one size fits all. So there may be a discussion where the agreement is, yes, this is kind of one that annually renews for a long period of time. But right now we don't have any definitions around a lot of this at the point where we have 25-year-old facilities and a large facilities investment project going into the facilities. There are a handful of these that really also need paint, need facelifts. And so, so each category 2 item on this list, I mean, the idea here is to talk to you first, and then go one by one down this list, try to make contact and try to come up with a mutual agreement with the business or the family on what's inappropriate. They would have an agreement with the county who owns the facilities for names. And then we would, we're going to divvy these up, and I would encourage anyone who may have a personal connection to any business on this list. I use the example, if there's an existing relationship, we're going to try to leverage that and make sure we have good conversations, but there's no one size. These are all going to be 5-year agreements. They're all going to be 10-year. Some of them might be 25 years. Some of them might be another 15 years. We really haven't gotten to that parameter discussion. If you have an opinion on that, I think we'd love to hear any comments you have related to any of that in terms of what you think is appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, currently I don't have too much of an opinion other than I would like to hopefully see sunsets on everything. Like, not that there's something like a forever one out there. I think everything should have some time to readdress it or reconfirm it and stuff. Yeah, so that's all I have for that.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Krebs. Anybody else?
Yeah, Supervisor Conyer, just on that note, yeah, James, you spoke of, not a one-size-fits-all for the naming rights, but maybe some standardization, say, for the trails or, or for the buildings at Fair Park or, some type of, foundational standardization for the same type of, categories.
Yes. And on that note, I do think we are also aware that businesses there are reasons why sometimes the value of a naming rights agreement is one thing, and then they also sometimes make donations, right? So donations are not the same as naming, and so that can come into the conversation. And that's a really good point in terms of, what the value of those things might be for somebody who maybe never responds to us, right? If we make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attempts and people no longer exist, right? We can't find anybody to contact, what is the value that we would be looking at from, these companies for whatever it is they're doing. It's easier with new. I remember the other thing I want to say. I do want to point out to the committee that behind this or with it, there is a desire by the AIS Board of Directors, and I think Washington County as well, I've heard it, to rename the entire facility out there. So right now it is Fair Park and Conference Center. And I think there's been some conversation about that related to what it really is and the expo and the equestrian complex. I know the Fair Park will come up at your strategic priorities retreat. Prior to renaming it, so Pleasant Valley Expo or whatever we might come up with, there are a handful of those conversations with the existing facility companies that have naming rights, as well as the idea of should you try to sell the name of the entire complex before you would just name it and go through the effort of rebranding and new signage and all of that. So I do think I just want to posture everybody that is on the heels of this conversation of, is there any interest in that at large from anybody currently out there, or a broader context to help fund some of the facility needs that we still have ongoing out there.
Supervisor Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's the ideal time for us to undertake this. Last summer we had our 25th anniversary event. The county is ready to spend some very serious funding into updating the AV of somewhat of a facelift on a great deal of the conference or exposition activities out there. So I think in that regard, we've got the perfect handle to go in and say, hey, we're working at basically kind of a facelift, complete update for a Fair Park. Like you go into a home and after 25 years, you're going to totally redo the kitchen and the living room. It's the same sort of thing. So this can be our launch pad to go back to all these people and say, hey, do you want to continue? We're trying to develop a more stable program or a long-term program where you can continue for 3 years, 5 years, 1 year, whatever. Again, some parameters will have to be drawn up. But I think this is the ideal time to do it. And as we mentioned at the county board meeting, just I think a week or so back, unfortunately, Stacy Holland has run into some real landmines out here at Fair Park, and this is one of them. I can imagine 25 years ago when they were doing the fundraising to raise the money to build the park, said, hey, you'll give us $10,000, we'll put your name on a building, and it was a one-time shot. Nobody ever thought about continuing it down the road. And now the time has come to do that. And I applaud Stacy with the work she's done, and I'm sure she had some anguish when we realized that we don't have paperwork on a great many of these commitments. And so, yeah, it's time to do it. I think the committee should move forward and encourage Jamie and Stacy and whoever else is going to be involved to get on it and get it done. And by the time the whole outfit, the whole facelifting, whatever you want to call it, at Fair Park is done in 2026, we could really have a grand reopening, so to speak. Upgraded signage, perhaps some new sponsors, and we'll even have a PA system where we can announce to everybody what's happened. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mary. Any other questions on the Zoom? Supervisor Pridemore?
I have just one question. I was just wondering, what is the cost of rebranding, renaming, like the Fair Park, just in general?
We will have an answer to that before we bring that forward in terms of a recommendation.
Okay.
That's a good question, and I think we need to probably think through what that means.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, because I'm going to take the last word on this one. All right. So I'm a huge free market capitalist, and I believe that the opportunities are there, and considering that we've moved the parks off of the tax levy and told them let's survive on our own, as well as we've told AIS that they need to improve, and they're certainly working to that end. I think we should always give them every opportunity to make that happen, and I think this is a great opportunity for both parties. I think the whole policy seems very reasonable, that if there's major buildings and stuff like that, will come back to the county. There will be an agreement where the county will have at least some word in that. But it does give a certain amount of flexibility to AIS on their own as well to look at things, and also certainly gives our Parks Department good latitude to start working out some of the things too. I know there is interest in naming rights with our parks. Certainly there's opportunity there, and would definitely like to see that happen. I think it's good for the advertising community, and I think it's good for the people of Washington County. So, having said all that, I will entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Supervisor Mary. A second?
Supervisor Conrad?
Seconded by Supervisor Conrath. All approving, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we have the Parks and Trails 2050 plan. Jamie, I take it you're taking this?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. So by point of background, just for the committee's sake, for anybody who doesn't, the approval process can be kind of tough. So the way that the county works and the way these 2050 plan updates work is we are bringing you this 2050 plan update now. You'll see the Golf Course 2050 plan in January. Because we are taking a step back at the long-term view of these enterprise funds who don't use any tax dollars to fund their projects and their equipment. So we want to make sure the funds stay healthy, that the projects are affordable, and that we're looking at kind of a long-term vision of what we're spending and what we're doing. The plan then will inform the county's capital improvement plan, which comes to the county board committee in February for the next 5 years, and is a plan that is approved by the county board. That plan then takes the next 2 years into the biennial operating budget where you approve the expenditures for those 2 years. Okay, so the focus of the detail is really being provided in 2026 and 2027, which are the next 2 years of the biennial budget, because those will be the next 2 years that you authorize the funding of those projects. So in your packet, you have the 2050 plan. which if you look at the spreadsheet, which I understand this spreadsheet can be a lot, but there is a line in 2025 that says capital non-vehicle 177,256. That line plus the vehicle purchase of 118,303, those two numbers combined are then what you see in the detailed spreadsheet. So they tie out. So in 2026, you see 1.57 million in expenses. If you then go to the 2026 detail, you see that it equals that because that's where the lakefront development expense is showing up of 1.1 million, right? So those numbers tie out in terms of what you're looking at in these plans. So we have included the detail in 26 and 27. The big changes in this plan from the last update are we did not include vehicles and equipment in the original 2050 plan, but we have since made the decision that we want the Parks Enterprise to fund these and pay for these. So what happens now is the fund itself will need to buy all of the trucks, mowers, tractors, and then a portion of that rate is charged back to the county tax levy for snow operations on the county grounds. So, but the fund, the Parks Enterprise, pays for it on the front end. So I know that's a lot to throw at you. So I'll just add one more thing. We've also shown you here 2025 project changes. So again, the two big ones, adding vehicles and equipment, and then Heritage Trails money for Slinger Fire Department. Those projects have not shown up before, but the totals are under the authorized spending authority for this fund because, and I make this note down there, we are bumping some asphalt projects at Sandy Knoll out several more years. So that's really how that's the change that's happening. So I will attempt to answer any questions I can. Logan is the detail behind this, and he is actually not here tonight. So depending on the question, our Chief Public Safety Officer is here as well because he's been working closely with Slinger Fire Department on that project, and in case you have any questions about that project. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. So I guess I'll defer out to any questions by the committee. All right.
I have a question if I could.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you. So on the top of the spreadsheet where in yellow it shows the equipment and vehicles, is that more of a ledger transfer? Are we buying our existing equipment that we're already using? Or is that new equipment and vehicles that we'll be purchasing?
Correct. It is new vehicles and equipment that we will be purchasing to replace existing fleet.
Okay, so like moving forward, is this like kind of a transitional process or budget where as we replace equipment, that's where the enterprise fund will be picking up those new expenses?
Yes, exactly. So the enterprise inherited all of the assets. So in theory, they are in the fund. And so now they are responsible for the full replacement cost of those vehicles and equipment. And so it shows up, and you see in the 2050 plan spreadsheet, there's actually, it's in gray, but it says vehicle lease and vehicle purchase. We evaluated, we spent a good amount of time evaluating lease versus buy and the sustainability of the plan and the impact on the equipment. But you see it kind of showing up every year now, the 10-year replacement of these trucks and equipment into this fund. So that ultimately does take away from other park projects or other available balances. But it is, you can see the top cash balance estimates, which we are comfortable with.
Okay, and maybe I missed it in the spreadsheet, but are we showing, or in the income area, are we showing like the billables that we will be billing the county back for the snow operations then?
We do in our operating budget.
Say that again, I'm sorry, it broke up.
We show that in our operating budget.
Okay.
And then our operating budget shows and add to cash, or essentially, I don't want to use the word profit, but this year there's a number in our operating budget that falls back to help fund this 2050 plan. So we do collect, and then we kind of show what we're aiming for to support this plan, and it shows up in the kind of the added revenue line items.
Okay.
It is confusing. It is very technical.
The other question I had is the Slinger Fire Department equipment, is that specifically like kind of the UTV that we keep hearing about, that's kind of a needed piece out there, a unique piece of equipment needed out there, or is there more than that is kind of being included into that number?
Supervisor Krebs, Chief Public Safety Officer Dave Sager, and thank you, Mr. Chair, other distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate first and foremost the hard work and effort that Jamie Ludovic has put forward in this regard, along with the Heritage Bike Trails and the approval of the additional trails, and Slinger Fire Department providing those services and in partnership with Washington County to provide EMS and fire protection out there. This is the UTV that you're referencing, Supervisor Krebs. It's an essential piece of equipment that is necessary to provide that type of response to the Heritage Bike Trails in an efficient and safe manner for those that enjoy those amenities, as well as the personnel that are responding to that circumstance. They already do have a UTV, but that UTV is used currently because they have nothing else, but it's not specific to the need that's at the Heritage Bike Trail. The one that they currently have carries 200 gallons of water, and every time they respond to the Heritage Bike Trail, they have to dump that water because it's so top heavy. So this piece of equipment is absolutely specific to the Heritage Bike Trail. So this indeed is the exact piece of equipment that is itemized in Ms. Ludovic's report.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Mary?
Clarification, you're saying it used exclusively for the bike trails. It's used exclusively for rescue and assistance operation, similar to what might be used, not just if somebody else had a situation, they're saying, well, you can't take that belongs to the bike trails.
No, sir. That would be used for all parks.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure we understand exactly what
That's an excellent point, and I appreciate that. That is the understanding that I have had with Slinger Fire, that would be incorporated into the fleet of equipment that's generally used and comprehensive in MABUS, more commonly referred to as mutual aid box alarm system. So that would be infused into the fleet. If that piece of equipment is needed anywhere in the county, they would go with it.
It just happens to be the Heritage Hills is the trigger to get the equipment.
That is the trigger, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well then I guess this question's for you, Mr. Seeger. Do we have any kind of plan for that equipment as far as the maintenance and possible replacement down the road, or?
That'll all be within the contract itself.
Okay, and is that anywhere done yet, or are we working on that still?
We'll be working on it if we get approval from the committee.
But to clarify, we won't own this equipment.
Right.
Slinger Fire Department will own it, they will maintain it, and they will take on the maintenance and future replacement responsibility. That will be part of what we require, because we are not in the business of continually reinvesting. This, in the parks, we feel it's unique because we kind of brought on, if you think of an impact fee, I know it's not quite the same, but we've brought on a certain level of activity, and so we really want to support the acquisition of this equipment, but we will be hoping that it can be planned for long-term by Slinger Fire Department.
And I guess that's where I'm leading, and I appreciate your statement, because we certainly realize we have a unique situation with this park, and we certainly realize that we want to move forward and be very cooperative with the Slinger Fire Department, because safety is a huge issue for us. But also, we have to be mindful of how the equipment is used, just like anything else that we have, and you know, how it's going to be maintained and how it's going to be replaced, and you know, whose liability is what. We cross our T's, we dot our I's. So I think that's all very reasonable, and I appreciate your answers. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we will take a motion to approve. Motion by Supervisor Mary. I'll go ahead and second myself. All approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. It's unanimous. All right. And our last item, we come to strategic priorities. Jamie, you're on this?
Yes. So the county board is set to talk about strategic priorities again in January. Part of that reason is you see a lot of yellow on this report of pieces of these that have been completed of the current strategic priorities. So this month, all of the strategic priorities are going to the respective committees, and these are the county board strategic priorities in front of you. And then in January, a report with all of them will roll up to the county board for you, so that you can see what the progress is, what the status is on each one of these. I encourage everybody to read through them and think about maybe what the next phase is or what things they think are important or not important. And I'm really happy to answer any questions that I can on this report, knowing that there are a few of these topics that have been rolling to the executive committee, the economic development, housing, next gen housing stuff. But because they're under the economic growth and vitality pillar, which is land use and planning, that's why they're on this report as it relates to the county board strategic priorities. So they are in front of you, and I'm happy to answer questions on any of these that I can, or at least note the questions, or you guys can reflect on these and follow up as well if there's anything specific that comes to mind.
All right, do we have any questions from the committee? Supervisor Mary?
I see them as a work in progress.
Very good. I guess I would probably suggest to the committee that you might want to take a look and read through these all, make sure you got them. When we get to that next strategic planning meeting, we can use this as a basis for ideas that we can bring to the table. These things, it's difficult to come up with those first couple of items. But once the flow starts, it starts to flow and people start to get it and they start, thinking in that way and utilize this paperwork to kind of give you an idea of some things to kind of set your mind into that mode of what kind of priorities do we have for our county going forward. Ms. Pridemore, this is your first priorities meeting, so this might be a new thing for you, but these are some of the things that we did a couple years back and now have accomplished. So things that in our community that we need to focus on, whether that be, child care, jobs, manufacturing, it could be dozens of different items, and literally nothing's off the table. Bring every and any idea, because we workshop it. We start dissecting it and cutting it up, and then we come up with the top ones. So it's a real good opportunity to learn a little bit about your community and start to shape the things. I mean, obviously, Supervisor Pridemore, you came here with an idea of what you'd like to do. And so this is your opportunity to put forward something that you think is not addressed or could be addressed or to start thinking about in our community. So with that, we don't need any motion on this, as this is just a working document. And there's no more questions, so I will go ahead and consider this meeting as closed. Next meeting date, oh, wait a minute. Jamie, you had a question?
Well, I just want to acknowledge you did skip item A, but it is an FYI item, so I do not know that you need to discuss it. I just wanted to point out that the Farm Bureau annual policy were included on the agenda for your information.
Yeah, I did. My mistake on that. Yeah, let me get back to that. We had to jog, excuse me. We had to jog some stuff around. I missed that. Everybody should have read through that. Are there any questions on what the Farm Bureau stuff is? I mean, it's basically just a document telling us their plans and their wishes, which I read through. Everything seems to be in order. So, okay, hearing none, we'll consider that passed through and understood. And with that, then we will go ahead and close out the meeting, subject to the call of the chair. Next meeting will be January 16th of 2025. See you. Have a happy new year.